Mi gente, welcome back to Mystics in the Hall. I'm your host Vanessa, and today I'm going to start a series I'm calling The Language of Intuition. I'm going to break down the intuitive senses, also known as the clairs. I'll share how they've shown up in my life, what they can feel like, and give you simple exercises you can start recognizing and strengthening them if you choose to. Before we get started, I do have a few tips for you if you so choose to do some of these exercises. I would suggest creating a journal. That way you can log certain situations and times and possibly go back to them later. Because not everything we get sometimes when we're doing this will make sense in the immediate moment, but it will later on. Another thing that I do want to go over is grounding, is basically trying to clear out all the clutter that isn't yours. That way you can start off with like a clean sheet of paper. And a lot of people aren't aware, but the earth has its own hertz and humans naturally sync up to that. I believe the earth's hertz is 7.83 hertz. It has been fluctuating in the last decade or so. It's what people call the Schumann resonance. So if you want to look that up for your own research, go right ahead. They track that daily from my understanding. But if you're starting out in this whole grounding and building your intuitive skills, I would suggest doing this practice every day before you get into the exercises. That way you know for sure that what's coming through is your intuition and not something else that may be within your own energy field, aka your aura. Personally, how I ground every day is I sit in a chair with my feet on the ground. It doesn't have to be outside. You don't need to go take your shoes off, hug a tree, even though all those things would be excellent because that's almost immediate grounding for us humans. But if you don't have that ability, because a lot of us don't, I would suggest sitting in a chair with your feet flat on the ground. And this also helps in case you're a person who's not used to having a regulated nervous system, because a lot of times when we actually start to relax and try to meditate, a lot of us will fall asleep. So it's best to start this practice sitting in a chair if you can, with your feet flat on the ground. So once you're in a chair with your feet flat on the ground, we're going to do some breaths. And the reason why these breaths are important is because it helps activate our pineal gland, which to me is kind of the source of connection to our intuition and to other abilities that we can get into other episodes. So what I want you to do initially is do 3 of the breaths I'm about to teach you before you get into the exercise. But remember to continue breathing at a pace, where you're mindful of your breaths as you're going through it. So first, I want you to take 4 counts of an inhale, and not just 1, 2, 3, 4, not quickly. I want you to try to do like 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 4 Mississippi. Then I want you to hold it for 4 counts. And then I want you to release it for 8 counts. And the reason why I say 8 is because it gets you to actually release most of what's left in your lungs of air, and that will help truly activate the pineal gland. So do 3 counts of this, again, counting in that 1 Mississippi frame. And once you get into there, I want you to imagine yourself somewhere out in an environment you like. It could be a meadow full of wildflowers, it could be on the beach. Once you're there, imagine the sun beaming down a white light over you, purifying everything on you. Once you do that, I want you then to imagine like an HVAC crystalline tube. This is what I do. It doesn't have to be an HVAC. It could be a cord. It could be a tree trunk, whatever you want it to be. But I usually imagine it coming up from Mother Earth and attaching to my hips, creating a sealant. That way, it cannot be removed from me throughout the entire day. And so once I have it sealed around my hips, and also the reason why I do that is because our root chakra is there. I put it there so that way most energy will leave through that area. So you want to imagine clumps of energy falling into that tube and going down into Mother Earth. And also, I would like to say this too. A lot of people have mentioned that sometimes they feel like giving Mother Earth negative energy or something like that would be harmful to her. That's not true. She was made to alchemize any type of energy. So don't you worry, she's going to utilize it, alchemize it for something else. So any energy is quote unquote good energy to her because she can use it. Okay, so once you have your tube around your waist, this next step not a lot of people talk about, but I think it is pretty important. We all have our own also energy field similar to Mother Earth, and that is what most people call the auric field, aka an aura. What I want you to do to envision your aura around you, about a arm's length on each side, front, back, up, down, okay? Once you have that visualized, I want you then to imagine tucking in your aura into the tube we just created, a foot below your feet. And I want it to imagine it draining into that tube as well. This helps release external energies that we may not be aware of that are attached to the outside of us. I know that personally I get a lot of feeling from this. So once you do that, then you can get into the exercises. This again creates a blank sheet of paper to start fresh with. That way you don't get confused with what's somebody else's and what's yours. Because a lot of the time, especially if you're a quote unquote empath, right? And I know these woo-woo terms are overly used. Everybody says this, but people are empaths. We're naturally all empaths. We pick up on other people's energies, right? Some are just better at deflecting what people are projecting out, but others unconsciously sometimes absorb that. So this helps alleviate that. That way you can increase your intuition. All right, so let's get into what are the clairs. There's different ways that intuition can come through you. And I do want to stress that even though we're going to go through individual clairs, most of the time you're going to be using multiple clairs at once. But through the series, we're just going to focus on one at a time. That way you can understand which one it is that you possibly are already practiced in and you didn't even realize you were doing it. Because a lot of the times, the better we are at the clair that we didn't even know we were aware of, it's probably related to some form of trauma. Unfortunately, trauma can increase our intuition because it is part of our survival. Okay, so let's go through the clairs that I'm personally very familiar with. There are more clairs and you can do some research on that, but for now, we're gonna just go through the ones that I'm very comfortable with. So there's claircognizance, that's clear knowing, clairsentience, that's clear feeling, clairvoyance, that's clear seeing, clairaudience, that's clear hearing, clairalience, that's clear smelling, clairgustance, clear tasting. I just want to state that clairalience and clairgustance are usually wrapped up in one into clairgustance, because a lot of the times if you are clear tasting, you're probably clear smelling because of the way our body is created, right? So sometimes you can smell something and taste it, right? And then sometimes you can taste something and then smell it. Last is clairtangency, also known as psychrometry, and that's usually what you're going to hear is the word psychrometry, and that's clear touching. Each one is a simple way that your intuition communicates to you. And in this first episode, we're going to go to the most common form of intuition, and that's claircognizance, clear knowing. A lot of us utilize this our entire lives without realizing that's what we've been doing. Claircognizance is exactly what it sounds like. You just know something. There's no step-by-step thinking, no evidence, no explanation. It just drops in. It can feel like a thought, but it doesn't feel like your usual thinking. It's faster, cleaner, more direct, and most of the time, it doesn't argue with you. There's no overthinking. For me, claircognizance has shown up in direct and honestly undeniable ways. Recently, I had a strong knowing that I had to start this channel. Not just as an idea, but something that had specific timing. I knew I had to be in Texas to do it, and I knew that I had to have my first video recorded by the 22nd of March. And some of you may have found me due to the Kill Tony episode that was filmed on the 23rd. I had no idea that I was going to do Kill Tony when I got the clear knowing, which was November of last year, by the way. So when I did get the clear knowing about Kill Tony, that was about a week before I actually finished the video and did everything I needed to do, and it started to finally make sense as to why I had to have that date. And I can get into the specifics about the Kill Tony intuition stuff in another episode because it would be a little too long. You have to understand that all of this started last year for me. Not my intuition, but like these messages of having to get certain priorities done and move to Texas. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know and I can break that down in another video. But let's get back to claircognizance. So again, there was no real mental debate about moving or the date. I just knew it had to be done. Another experience was when I had a family member who wanted to surprise us with a pregnancy. And what you have to understand is that this couple had been already married for over a decade and spoke about not having children. But the moment they called to share the news, I knew right away exactly what the news it was they were going to share. So that to me was a very claircognizant moment. Another one was when I had a friend who traveled to another country and she had told me she was going to do this activity that she normally does when she goes to visit that country. And I asked her when she got back, did she do that activity? But before I could even get my question out of my mouth, I already knew the answer was no. And she validated that for me by saying no. I also want you to think back when you were a child. I guarantee your claircognizance was way more accurate then because we weren't inundated with a lot of the adult responsibilities we have now. Our inner child was still more alive in us. So I do remember a lot more claircognizant moments. For example, when I was a kid, I had a friend that when we would occasionally sleep over her house, we'd sneak out. And one night, I kept getting this gut feeling, just this knowing that we shouldn't be going. And I think I even warned them. Mind you, we were 12 years old. This was like middle school or something. And we ended up sneaking out. And of course, we got caught. And you're probably thinking, well, yeah, that happens. But we've snuck out so many other times and I never had this feeling before. So that to me was me ignoring my intuition and then that thing occurring. And what I've learned from all these experiences, when I stop trying to override it, when I don't force logic over that knowing and I just follow it, things tend to unfold with a lot more ease. For me, claircognizance isn't just a thought, it's a direction I follow. And over time, I've learned that my job isn't to over-explain in the moment. It's to notice it, trust it, and follow it when it's clear. Now, one of the biggest challenges of claircognizance is that people usually dismiss it. Because it feels so simple, we tend to think, that doesn't mean anything, I'm probably making that up. But the truth is, your brain is constantly processing information beneath your awareness. I tend to think our brains are quantum computers, adjusting to the quantum field. And we can get into that in another episode. Researchers like Daniel Kahneman talk about fast, intuitive thinking, where your mind recognizes patterns instantly before you consciously understand them. So sometimes that knowing is your system putting pieces together faster than your conscious mind can come up with. And whether you see it as psychological, intuitive, or something more, your experience of it is still real. Now let's talk about the difference between claircognizance and overthinking, because this is where people get tripped up. Claircognizance is quick, clear, doesn't repeat aggressively, feels complete on its own. Overthinking, repetitive, questioning, builds stories, feels mentally cluttered or pressured. Claircognizance is one thought. Overthinking is 20 thoughts, trying to figure out if your first one was right. So how do you start recognizing or strengthening this? I want to keep this simple. First exercise I'm going to call name the knowing. The next time a thought pops into your head that feels random but clear, pause. Instead of dismissing it, just acknowledge it. Okay, I just had a knowing. Seems simple, right? You don't have to act on it. You don't have to analyze it. Just notice it. If you want to take it a step further, write it down. Use a journal as I suggested. Over time, you'll start seeing the patterns, what your knowing feels like, when it shows up, And how often is it actually right? You can also practice in low pressure moments. Ask yourself simple things like, which route should I take? Should I go now or wait? Another one I like to do is, when is the light gonna turn green? And notice what comes first before your mind jumps in. That first response, that's usually where your intuition lives. Claircognizance isn't about being psychic or having all the answers. It's a learning about recognizing the quiet, immediate clarity that's already happening inside you. The more you acknowledge it, the easier it becomes to trust it. And that's really what it's about. Not forcing intuition, not making something happen, just learning how your system already speaks to you and choosing whether or not to listen. In the next episode, we're gonna move on into a different intuitive language, one that shows up less in your thoughts and more in your body. But for now, start paying attention to what you already know, because chances are you know more than you think. I want to thank everybody who has followed, subscribed, liked. Please give us a follow on Instagram. I'm going to try to be a little bit more active at Mystics in the Hall. If you're still looking for a community right away, again, every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Central Time, go to metaphysicalu.com. My mentor, Sarah Reeves, she holds an online intuitive development group for free, guys, every Wednesday night. And I guarantee you're not gonna be the odd man out. There's so many people that are just like you. So thanks again for following Mystics in the Hall, and I'll see you in the next episode. Peace and love to you guys.